To most of the public, dinosaurs are considered almost synonymous with the Mesozoic era, the age of reptiles. Despite this, dinosaurs were still rare and generally small during the first period of the Mesozoic, the Triassic period. They were overshadowed by a number of creatures, most prominently the pseudosuchians. Although they belonged to the same branch of reptiles as the dinosaurs, Archosauria, the pseudosuchians were more closely related to crocodilians. Among their number was the predatory Qianosuchus, a medium-sized reptile which looked more like a land drake than any dinosaur did. Like the dinosaurs, most Triassic pseudosuchians, including the direct ancestors of the crocodilians, were fully terrestrial animals. However, Qianosuchus took to the water independently of them, yet curiously remained far more competent on land than both crocodilians and most of the other contemporary amphibious reptiles. Qianosuchus' fossils are from the Guanling Formation in the Chinese Guizhou province. This site dates to the first half of the Anisean stage of the Middle Triassic, about 247 to 245 million years ago. Despite the name, the Middle Triassic was actually near the beginning of the Triassic period. 2 Qianosuchus skeletons have been found so far, and a third, isolated skull may also belong to it. The 2 skeletons are very well preserved, and only the lower half of Qianosuchus' forelimbs and the end of its tail are currently missing. Qianosuchus was about 3 meters long. While crocodilians only have a semi-erect posture, Qianosuchus' forelimbs were placed directly beneath his body. This more dinosaur-like stance was actually ancestral to pseudosuchia. The scapulas of Qianosuchus' forelimbs are thin and plate-like, a feature present in many other marine reptiles, although its hind limbs entirely lack any aquatic adaptations. Indeed, its legs were notably much longer than those of crocodilians and most other semi-aquatic reptiles. While this would have allowed Qianosuchus to run faster while on land, its legs were not its main source of propulsion in the water. That was done by its tail. Much like a crocodile's, it was long, tall, compressed on the sides, and larger than the tail of a terrestrial animal. Qianosuchus' tail was actually better optimized for swimming than the tails of the saltwater crocodile and the fully marine reptile Qianosuchus, although the latter also had flippers. Like most pseudosuchians, Qianosuchus had bony osteoderms on its skin. However, they were smaller and less extensive than those of most other pseudosuchians. This was likely an adaptation to life in the ocean. The modern saltwater crocodile has fewer osteoderms than its relatives, while the extinct metriorhynchids, who were fully marine crocodilomorphs, lost them entirely. Like crocodilians, Qianosuchus' skull was elongated. However, while most crocodilian skulls are flat, so as to create less resistance when swimming, Qianosuchus' skull was instead deep, although the premaxilla at the end of the snout was thin and upturned. Qianosuchus' teeth were zyphodont, meaning they were serrated, recurved, and laterally compressed. Zyphodont teeth are excellent at slicing through flesh, and were typical of most predatory dinosaurs and other terrestrial archosaurs. However, the teeth of most aquatic and semi-aquatic archosaurs, including crocodilians, are conical. In another departure from crocodilians, Qianosuchus' neck was long, although nowhere near to the extent of the contemporary plesiosaurs and tanystrophiids. Its neck had long ribs which served as attachment points for extensive muscles, which would have enabled it to make strikes that were both quick and powerful. Therefore, Qianosuchus was equipped to catch both small, nimble prey like fish, and larger prey like other reptiles. Although evolution has produced no shortage of semi-aquatic animals, Qianosuchus' particular combination of terrestrial and aquatic traits is unusual. Its long legs would have produced excess drag when swimming, which is why most semi-aquatic animals shorten their legs early in their evolution. While they would have certainly been beneficial on land, its aquatic traits, like its heavy tail, would have been major disadvantages when competing with dedicated terrestrial carnivores. On the surface, Qianosuchus' mixture of specialized aquatic and terrestrial traits may seem like something that should have never evolved in a single animal. These seemingly contradictory adaptations are explained by the environment it lived in. When Qianosuchus was alive, southern China was not part of the megacontinent Pangaea, and most of the Kweijo province was underwater. Therefore, Qianosuchus is thought to have lived on islands. While most of the available land was too small to maintain a population of fully terrestrial carnivores, Qianosuchus could viably fill their niche part-time. Likewise, while it was not as well adapted to the water as the other marine reptiles, it was still competent enough there to catch sufficient amounts of prey to make up for the limited resources on the islands. Besides fish, it would have also preyed upon the local, and often large, marine reptiles. They included the long-necked Dinocephalosaurus, early ichthyosaurs such as Mixosaurus, and the unusual hammer-mouthed herbivore Atopodentius. Some of these reptiles, like the nothosaurs, would have still visited the shores, where they would have been the most vulnerable to Qianosuchus. However, while it was their greatest threat on land, some contemporary species of Nothosaurus grew to 7 meters long, and were likely the greatest threats to Qianosuchus in the water. Qianosuchus belonged to a branch of pseudosuchia named Paposauroidae. As one can tell from this image, it was a very diverse clade. It included sail-backed predators like Arizonosaurus, and bipedal dinosaur mimics like the Juvosaurids, and Paposaurus itself. None of them were very much like Qianosuchus. However, most studies of pseudosuchian evolution place Qianosuchus at the base of Paposauroidae. Qianosuchus, who also lived in the seas of Middle Triassic China, was once considered potentially even less derived. More recent research has found that Qianosuchus was not a paposauroid at all, but an early phytosaur, an entirely different group of amphibious reptiles. Therefore, in spite of its aquatic adaptations, Qianosuchus may be the closest science has to what the first paposauroids looked like. Qianosuchus may also be the oldest semi-aquatic archosaur. Ironically, the only potential challenger to the title is once again Qianosuchus, since it is currently debated whether or not phytosaurs were early archosaurs, or merely close relatives of the archosaurs. Either way, Qianosuchus did not give rise to the later, water-loving archosaurs like crocodilians. While it still remains an evolutionary novelty among the paposauroids, Qianosuchus struck a unique balance between land and water which set it apart not just from its surviving relatives, but also from all other semi-aquatic animals. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to hit the like button, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Finally, be sure to have a great day.